Yes, of course, Mary is victorious because of Jesus, but Jesus is victorious because of Mary's yes. And I believe that in the state of California, where the governor is trying to make this a culture of death, a state of culture of death, a sanctuary of abortion, Our Lady is calling soldiers like yourself in this crisis to be the soldiers for life. And I believe that there's a great purpose for you being here today. And I want to thank each and every one of you today for that effort, for telling God, yes, I will be here. I will be a little soldier, and for coming here. And so thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being here today. But I believe that Our Lady brought you here. And my story actually starts here in California. I'm from California. I live in Alabama because I work for EWTN, but I'm from California. I'm from northern part, Sonoma County. And I was raised in a Hispanic family. My parents are from Mexico. And I felt very loved in my household. I have an older sister, a younger brother, but we didn't have God in our family. He was never the center of our family. He was never the center of our lives. We didn't practice our Catholic faith. We were all baptized into the faith, but we didn't have him in our hearts. He was never the king of our homes. And when I was growing up, I remember my mom saying, okay, well, it's about that age where I need to register you for CCD classes. So, out of tradition, we were those typical traditional Catholics that only went to Mass when it was Christmas, or there was a wedding, or a quinceañera, or some type of festivity, but we never practiced our faith. I don't remember seeing a rosary at home, or a Bible, anything. But my mom said, it's about that age where you need to receive your Holy Communion, and I'm going to register you for CCD. And it was during my CCD classes that I started to learn about God. I didn't really learn about God at home. And I started to understand that Jesus died on the cross for my sins. And I understood that the Virgin Mary was the mother of God and my mother. And I grew a very close relationship with God the Father. I remember after CCD class, I would run to my backyard and I would look up at the clouds and I would talk to God. And I felt so loved by him, and I felt like I loved him. And I remember one day I told my mom, I really want to give God a love note. I want to write a note, but I can't send God a love note to heaven through the mail. How do I send it up to the sky? And my mom bought me a balloon. I remember she bought me a balloon and put helium in it, and she tied a string to it, and I wrote a little love note to God the Father. And I remember tying that little string and standing in my backyard and letting that balloon go and just standing there until it disappeared into the clouds. And I believe with my whole heart that he received my love notes, and I would do that with God. And that was the little relationship I had with God as a child. But after CCD class and I received my Holy Communion, I didn't really understand what my Holy Communion was, but the very little faith I had, it was completely gone. So this was 1990, like in the 90s. And do you guys remember the New Age movement was really powerful in the 90s? My mom was a follower of Deepak Chopra, yeah, and then Shirley MacLaine. Do you guys remember Shirley MacLaine in the 90s? Yes. My mom would pop in VHS cassettes, and I know a lot of young people here are like, what's a VHS? They don't even know what that is, but anyhow, she would pop these VHS cassettes, and my sister and I would meditate in front of our television, and we would line our chakras, and we would awaken the serpent inside of us. And my mom would take us to these big conventions where they would read our, tarot cards and our past lives, and we were into Reiki, we were into deep stuff. So like I said, Jesus was never the king of our home. We let Satan come into our household, and we opened some pretty heavy demonic doors. 1990s, remember there was no internet, there was no YouTube. I didn't know a pro-life movement existed. And in our households, I'm pretty sure a lot of us here, we didn't speak about sexuality in our households. Our parents didn't give us that, the talk about authentic, true love, about how the sacredness of sexuality. I didn't get that talk at home. I didn't know what virtue was. I didn't know that my mission in life was to become a saint. Like I said, we didn't know God. I didn't know that I had a treasure, and that was my virginity. I didn't know that I was supposed to practice purity, and that, God had a plan for me, and, maybe one day I was going to marry somebody, and that I had to take care of that purity and treasure my virginity until, I was married. And, my parents were supposed to be the protectors of my purity. And unfortunately, they never received, the talk on sexuality, on true and authentic love, or on the virtues. So you can't give your children something that you don't have. You can't give an inheritance when you didn't receive that inheritance, because I believe believe that we need to give our children this beautiful inheritance that are the virtues and the treasure of the church. And they didn't have that themselves, so they couldn't give me something that they didn't have. And I remember in the 6th grade, I was still playing with dolls. Like I said, you remember those days where you'd go outside in the neighborhoods and there was just so many children playing, and bicycles and children at the parks. I mean, we don't hardly see that today. But I believe, like back then, I believe that my children were a little bit more innocent than today. I mean, it's really hard to be a teen today. Teens are constantly bombarded by sexuality, like wrong messages from the world on their phone, on TV, on the computer. It's so hard not to be tempted today as a young kid. It's hard even as an adult. It's even hard to be a human today in this crazy upside world. But back then, I remember the purity that I had, the innocence that I had. And when I went to school one day, they announced that Planned Parenthood was going to come to my school and give us a course on sexuality, on practicing safe sex. And I remember I had to get a permission slip from my mom, and I asked her, Mama, they're going to give us a course on sexuality, and she said, this is great because you're going to learn how to be responsible. You're going to learn how to practice safe sex, and this is great. You're going to learn how to use condoms and birth control. And my mom, we were living in ignorance. She thought she was giving me the best advice, and she thought this was great. And I always say, when children don't know the truth at home, when your house is not built on a rock and it's built on sand, well, the world the wind blows your home, and the world, lies to the youth, lies to the person that doesn't have discernment, that doesn't know truth, and the world drags them across, drags them and sucks them into the culture of death. And that's exactly what happened with me. I didn't know truth at home. And so my mom kind of left me in the hands of the world. And I remember getting to school in the 6th grade, 12 years old. I never thought about sex in my life. I didn't know what that was. And I get to school, and on my desk, there's condoms and birth control pills, and there's a banana. And I remember kind of feeling shameful and embarrassed, and everybody was giggling. An abortionist came in, a counselor came in, and a nurse came in and told my class, okay, we're going to learn how to practice safe sex. There's so many unwanted pregnancies in the US. There's so many STDs, and we're going to teach you guys how to be responsible. They told us abortion is a solution to an unwanted pregnancy. Girls, it's not really a baby until you're 5 months pregnant. Okay, it's not completely formed yet. It's just considered a clump of cells, a sac of tissue, that whole thing. It's not really a baby because it's not completely formed until about 5 months gestation. And abortion is the solution to a pregnancy crisis. And we can take care of that. You can come to our clinic and it will be completely private. Your parents will never find out. They said, we really recommend masturbation. We really recommend this because it's good for your health. And what was happening here, this is what the abortion industry does, okay? They need to obtain a quota. So they basically need a certain amount of abortions a month to meet their quota. And they say, okay, since parents aren't educating their children about truth, we will be their educators. We will start with the little ones. We will go into the schools. We will promote something that's completely false called safe sex, because safe sex does not exist. And we'll hand out all these condoms and birth control. We will start, encouraging these kids to experiment. That's why they were encouraging masturbation. So they'll be curious, because the youth are curious. And then we will obtain future abortion patients. This is a trap that the abortion industry does to the young ones. And this is exactly what happened. I remember out of that class, when we were out of that course, I started hearing about all my friends losing their virginity. I started hearing about girls getting pregnant, and I started hearing about a couple of abortions that happened, even going into junior high. But they never spoke about the true consequences when you have sex before marriage. The despair, what can happen, the STDs, just the risks, when you have sex before marriage. They never spoke about human dignity, the heart, the importance of the human, the soul, none of that. They just kind of gave us this false education, and they said, we are here to help if you're ever pregnant. Abortion is the solution. And the message that women, God is, it's your body, it's your choice, basically. Women, it's your body, it's your choice. You can do whatever you want, it's your body. And the message that we're giving the young boys is, if they ever found themselves in an unwanted pregnancy or in a crisis, they don't have a choice when it comes to abortion. They're basically silenced. That was the message that the young kids were receiving, the boys. And I remember thinking, okay, well, when I fall in love, one day I find a boyfriend, then safe sex is the answer. And that's what I thought as a teenager love was. I thought, okay, if I have a boyfriend, the way I show him that I love him is giving my heart and giving my body. And that's what a lot of teens think today, and especially girls. They think that in order to show love, they have to give their body, into sexuality. And that's a complete lie. I'll tell you what's beautiful. For the young people that are here, you want to find somebody that says, you are so worthy and so special that not only do I want to protect your purity and your body, but I want you to go to heaven. And I'm going to protect the purity of your soul. And I'm going to put my sacrifices aside and my desires so that you can become a saint. That is true and authentic love. But I didn't know this. I didn't know anything about the things of heaven. And anyhow, at home, things were really bad with my parents. Like I said, we were really involved in the New Age, and I believe with my whole heart that the New Age movement destroys a family. I believe it destroys a marriage. It is exactly what happened with my parents. My mom wasn't that loving, mama, homemaker. She just became rebellious. She completely changed when she was getting deeper into this movement. And one day she said, you know what? I'm leaving. I packed my bags. I have my suitcase. I'm just a slave here at home. I'm a homemaker, but I'm just cooking and cleaning all the time. I'm not doing anything with my life. I'm not successful. So I'm leaving. I don't want this life. And that's exactly what society tells women today. That if you're home and you're taking care of your family, you're taking care of your husband, your children, that you are not successful, then you're not doing anything with your life. Because we see on social media those women that travel, the women that have all these businesses, the entrepreneurs, the women, in the business suits and on the techie computers. And we think that that's success. And that's not true in the eyes of God. Because when we face Judgment Day, God will not hold us accountable for the careers and the trips that we had or the businesses we owned. God's going to hold us accountable. How much did we love our husbands and how much did we love our children? How much did you love your wife and how much did you love your children? That is true success in the eyes of God. And the society tells you that, no, you're not doing anything. You're not successful. And my mom left. And when my mom left, I was so angry at her. And I became very rebellious inside. A lot of young kids today are fatherless or they're abandoned by one of their parents. And the rebellion, inside of them is because they have a mama or a daddy wound. And I had the mama wound big time. I hated my mom. And I was pretty much all about myself. I was a straight A student because I wanted to travel the world and I wanted to be somebody important in this world and I wanted to be successful and rich and I wanted to look good and I cared about what I drove and what I wore and I was pretty vain. I was very, very vain. I had a lot of friends in school, but I had big dreams for myself. But everything was about me. That was the way I was. And when I was 19 years old, I met my first serious boyfriend. And I waited a while before I had sex. And my friends would kind of laugh and say, hey, you're already 19 years old. What are you waiting for? You love him, right? Like, why are you waiting? Don't you love him? Don't you want to give him your body also? And I thought, yeah, they're right. I've waited 6 months and maybe it's time to show my boyfriend that I care about him. So we started to practice safe sex. But something failed, and this is what the abortion industry does. It's a trap. It always fails. There's no birth control and there's nothing that protects you from a pregnancy. Actually, it's scientifically proven. It's proven by science and by medicine that birth control, any type of birth control, it's an abortifacient, right? And it's very sad because there are high numbers in the Catholic Church. I think it's like about 90% of people in the Catholic Church are using some type of birth control method. And there are other methods that go along with the church and that are healthier, but it's actually, it's all a trap from the abortion industry. And I wasn't feeling good. I thought, wait, there's no way I'm pregnant. I'm practicing safe sex, but you know what? Let me just take a pregnancy test just to make sure. And of course, the test came out positive immediately. Okay, it was not fear in my heart, it was panic mode. Because when you're trying to protect yourself from pregnancy, the worst thing that can happen to you is become pregnant, right? It was panic mode. And the first thing I thought in my head was, my life is over. Now I'm going to be that young slave stuck at home with a child, no traveling, no business, no career. I'm going to be the person my mom ran from. I'm gonna have no life. My life is over. That's the first thing I thought. And then the next thing I thought was my father, being a Mexican father. People, if you're Latino here, we know we love gossip. And the first thing that I thought in my head was, oh my gosh, this gossip is gonna go like a lightning bolt over to my father's town in Mexico. And I'm going to shame my dad. I can't do this to my dad. And I was so terrified. But when I gave the news to my boyfriend, he said, Patricia, no, this is amazing news. I will protect you. I will take care of you. Don't be scared. We can do this. I will help you. You can keep going to school. You'll do something with your life. I'll help you. I am here. I'm going to take responsibility. Wow, the words of my boyfriend, taking responsibility and giving me his protection, it had the power for me to say, yes, I can continue this pregnancy. Now, when we think of abortion, we always think of women. We always associate abortion with women who have abortions, right? But I can tell you, being in post-abortion healing, that there are more men today in crisis pregnancy than women. There are more men today that are scared to be fathers than women who are scared to be mothers. Remember, it takes man and woman for conception. When a woman has abortion, a man also has an abortion. We've had close to 70 million abortions in this country. We've had close to 70 million men who have aborted and probably haven't even healed that. So a man is created by God, just like Saint Joseph, to be great, to be the head of the household, to be authority, and to be the protector of all human life. I believe, I say this with confidence, I believe with my whole heart that if every male on this planet, every male judge, lawyer, every male educator, every male physician, every male on this planet were to defend life with their whole heart, I don't believe abortion would exist. I don't. That is what man was created to be, is to be the protector of human life. And there are more men today that abandon the women, leave them, force them, and there are more men that are scared to take responsibility, and that's a big issue we have in this culture of death. And I decided to continue my pregnancy, and I was very excited. And I was 4 months pregnant. My stomach was starting to show. And my best friends came over one day, and they were crying, and they said, Patricia, please, look, you have time to have an abortion. Remember in school, we learned it's not really a baby until you're 5 months pregnant. Please don't ruin your life. You're a straight A student. You have all these dreams. Just have an abortion, learn your lesson, and move on. And they were just begging me to please do this, to have an abortion. And again, that fear came into my heart, because the root of all abortion is fear. The woman says, what am I gonna do? I don't have enough money, I don't have a job, my partner just left, everything's fear. And that fear came back. And I thought, you know what, they're right. Like I said, internet was just starting back in the 90s. I thought to myself, you know what, they're right. It's not completely formed. I have time. I can't do this right now. I'll get married after and I'll have a family after, but this is not the time. They're right. What am I doing? They're not evil. We were just a group of ignorant girls that never knew the truth at home. And we were lied to by society, and we're a victim of abortion. I believe I was a victim of the abortion industry for the first time in my life when I was 12 years old in school, in public school. And this is going on today in public schools in our nation. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'm gonna make my life easier. I'm gonna go have an abortion, but I'm gonna not tell the truth to my boyfriend. He's Mexican. Mexican people don't have abortions. My dad has 14 brothers and sisters. My mom has 12. People, Latinos don't have abortions. This is totally an American thing. So I'm just gonna make my life easy, go have an abortion. I'll just tell them I had a miscarriage and I'll start over. And then I'll be freed from this. Now, because this was now a problem. I made my abortion appointment in Santa Rosa, California at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I wanted to just get it over with, go in, be the first patient, and just forget about it and start all over. When I got out of my car the day of my appointment, so much shame I started to feel. I started to feel very, very shameful that I was walking into an abortion building, and I remember thinking to myself, I never thought this would happen to me. How did I get pregnant? Because a lot of young kids think it will never happen to them, and parents think it will never happen to their own children. But I never thought I'd have an abortion. Never thought that would be me. But anyhow, I walked into the abortion clinic feeling very shameful, looking down. I didn't want to see anybody in the eye. I was so embarrassed. and scared because I didn't know what an abortion was. I couldn't go on YouTube back then. There was no YouTube. And see what an abortion was. And I remember when I was looking down at the floor in the lobby, Tuesday morning, there was 30 young girls. The ages were 13, 14, 15 years old, ready to have their abortions. And it was kind of shocking to me. And I remember asking the receptionist, what are they doing here? It's Tuesday morning, they should be in school. Oh, well, here in the state of California, it's legal for a 13-year-old to get an abortion, cut school, and her parents, don't have to find out and know about this. Now, I know of a case here in California that a mother dropped her daughter off at junior high and thought her daughter was in school the whole day, couldn't find her daughter after school, and got a call in the evening saying your daughter cut school, had an abortion, and she did not survive. This is legal in our state. But you can't go to CVS if you're 18 years old and get NyQuil. But you can do that. You have to get carded here to get any type of medication at the pharmacy. But you can have an abortion as young as 13 years old. And anyhow, I remember they put me into the operation room, and I was so scared and nervous. The abortionist walks in, and at the time I was working at a medical practice with 6 physicians, and I really respected doctors because I had 6 bosses that were doctors, and I was always trained at work, patient care, patient honesty, compassion, everything about the patients, right? And I kind of was respecting what this abortionist was telling me. She said, look, Patricia, this is gonna take 5 minutes. If this makes you feel any better and it kind of, eases your anxiety, I had an abortion myself. I performed 2 abortions on my daughter last year. My daughter's okay. I'm okay. I would never do something to you that I would never do on my daughter. And that kind of eased my anxiety. I trusted her, and she said, look, I'm doing your ultrasound right now, and the only thing I see on the screen is just a clump of cells. I don't see anything. And I remember the screen was facing her, and she wouldn't let me look at the screen. Well, during that abortion, I can tell you I had mixed feelings. I heard the vacuum sound. I felt that something was getting sucked out of me, like life, like something was like I felt when it was, after the abortion, something was missing, like there was a big emptiness inside of my womb. But at the same time, I felt relieved. I thought, my problem is over. I'm done with this. And I really thought that I was gonna walk out of that abortion clinic as a free woman, ready to start all over. But I was lied to. The only post-care instructions they gave me were, Patricia, you can go home, get some Tylenol for cramping, and you're done. You can go to work tomorrow. That's it. That was it. But they never talked to me about post-abortion syndrome. They never told me that I was actually gonna walk out in bondage, that my true nightmares and my true problems were actually gonna start after that abortion. And I remember my heart was hardened. I never cried. I was pretty numb. I gave the fake news to my boyfriend, and he was weeping. And the problem started for both of us. We both started to have nightmares, and he would have a recurring nightmare, and he'd say, I'm feeling anxious, I feel like there's something missing, I'm dreaming of a little girl, she calls me daddy, and I'm feeling, my emotions are kind of going up and down, and he didn't know what was going on with him, right? And I was feeling the same thing. I was feeling like I'd cry all the time, I get mad all the time. I started to pull out my hair like crazy. I would look in the mirror and I thought I was disgusting, and I stopped eating, and I had anorexia and all these mental, emotional disorders, physical damage to my womb. I felt like there was something wrong in my womb, and it wasn't feeling good, and it was just a kind of a mess. But I always thought that I was feeling this way because of my parents' separation, but it was really, we were both suffering post-abortion syndrome, because men suffer post-abortion syndromes. Have you guys seen cases of when women are pregnant, the man is the one that's like throwing up, and he's the one that's feeling nauseous? And he's the one affected by the pregnancy, he's feeling the symptoms? It's the same thing with abortion. I've had men after my talk say, I get it now. That's why I started drinking. That's when I started gambling. That's when I started drug addiction. That's why when I see my ex-girlfriend, I start to cry. I didn't connect it. I'm suffering post-abortion syndrome. Men have abortions. Anyhow, I thought to myself, okay, well, I'm gonna start using birth control pills. I'm gonna really be responsible now and take it every day at the same time. And this time I'm gonna learn my lesson and take care of myself. Well, that's what I did. And I thought, again, that I was practicing safe sex. And again, I started to feel nauseous and did not feel well. I took a second pregnancy test, positive. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on? Why am I pregnant again? I just had an abortion 6 months ago. And this time I thought, you know what, I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm not going to tell my boyfriend. He's going to want me to continue this pregnancy, and I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to go to Planned Parenthood, totally different clinic, and I'm going to have a second abortion. Well, Planned Parenthood, they gave me all these free, they helped me pay some of my abortion. They gave me all these free condoms, and they were amazing. And we didn't, when they confirmed my appointment with my dad, they lied and said they were Jane. And I thought they were great. I thought they were for the youth. I thought they had my back. And I had the second abortion, and my symptoms were worse. Pretty much at this point, after being anorexic, having anxiety, pulling my hair out even more, I was pretty much suicidal. I had these psychotic suicidal thoughts, and I wanted to end my life, and I didn't know why. But now, as Catholics, we know why, because I had the spirit of death inside of me. We see all these stories like haunted houses, people that were killed or died, and they're, spooky houses. Can you imagine a womb? Can you imagine murder in the womb? That's why I had that spirit of death inside of me. And that's why so many women that have abortions, pretty much 80% of them try to take their life. They're suicidal. And some of them do take their life. And I was just feeling so suicidal, and I didn't understand what was going on. My boyfriend didn't know about the second abortion, and he's like, I'm feeling so depressed. I feel empty. There's something wrong with me. And he didn't know what was happening with his emotions, and it was post-abortion syndrome. Even though I didn't tell him he had a second abortion. Okay, I continued to practice safe sex for a couple more months. It fails a third time. And I take a third pregnancy test, and it's positive. And you can think, wow, okay, wait, you had one abortion, you didn't learn your lesson, or, three unwanted pregnancies. But this is a trap that I was talking about that comes from the abortion industry with women. They know that when a woman has one abortion, 65% of women that have an abortion, they come back for a second, a third, a fourth. They know that woman's gonna walk out. She's not gonna live a life of chastity. She's not gonna learn her ways and be pure. Actually, being promiscuous is a symptom of post-abortion symptoms. So that woman is just gonna try to find love in the wrong ways even more. And they know that she is gonna go back into the mouth of the beast and live the same disordered sexual life and be back a second and a third and a fourth time. I have worked, like I said, in post-abortion healing. I've met women that have had 8 abortions, 10, 16. There's one woman that a priest told me that had 23 abortions. They start to actually use it as birth control. And this is so common, you guys. It's just not common to hear multiple abortions, through a microphone. I mean, people don't tell their story publicly. This is so common in our country, especially Hispanics. And the third pregnancy, I thought to myself, okay, wait, you know what? No. I'm just gonna tell him I'm pregnant. I'm feeling so guilty inside. I want him to come with me to have an abortion. So I'm just gonna tell him, and I'm gonna make him come with me. And I called him and told him I was pregnant. And he was so excited. And I said, don't even get excited, because I already have an appointment tomorrow morning at an abortion clinic, and I'm gonna have an abortion. My heart was so hardened, and I didn't care what he thought or how he felt. And he said, but Patricia, I don't wanna have an abortion. I wanna be a father. I don't wanna have an abortion. Oh my goodness. When he said those words to me, I felt like he was trying to take my right away from me. And I yelled at him, who are you to take my right away from me? It's my body, it's my choice. I don't care what you think. I'm gonna go have my abortion. You have no control over my body. This is very sad, because he did have a right to be a father. He was a father. I took his right away from him, actually, to be a father. I took his paternity away. I have met men. This is very sad, because the unborn don't have a voice. But today, if a man wants to save the life of his child, unborn child, he has no voice. He's completely silenced. I've met men that have stood in front of the abortion clinic, and they said, Patricia, I tried to save the life of my baby, and I was completely powerless. I was impotent. I was thrown out by security. I was arrested by cops. I didn't. My baby died, and I couldn't do anything about it. I tried. And the pain that they suffer, it's very sad, because abortion destroys a whole family. It kills the baby, destroys the mother's spirituality and even her life, but it destroys the father as well. But the unborn today do not have a voice, and those fathers that want to be fathers and save their babies are completely silenced. And I went to the abortion clinic. I laid on the operation table. My boyfriend was there, but he didn't want to be there. And he stood by the operation table. They turn on the vacuum sound, which is literally a vacuum. It's 28 times more powerful than a household vacuum machine. It's a very powerful machine. And during that abortion, I told myself, I'm gonna close my eyes, I'm not gonna cry, and I'm gonna get through 5 minutes. I've already done this a couple of times. I could do this again, and this will be over. And I felt my boyfriend squeeze my hand so tight. And I opened my eyes to see his reaction, and he was crying. And I felt his tears just bathe my face. And I remember thinking to myself, what's wrong with me? 3 abortions in a year and a half? You know, he's thinking it's the first abortion, but it's the third. And I just knew that I just wanted to start a different life. I knew that after that abortion, I had to leave him and just move away and start all over. I was so miserable inside. And that's exactly what I did. I thought that would be the solution to my misery, is just to start all over where nobody knew who I was. I left the boyfriend and I moved to Sacramento, California. But misery runs with you when it's inside of your heart. It just moved along with me. And I lived in Sacramento, and like I said, I worked in the medical field as a reception for many years, and I was trying to look for a job in the medical field because now I was living by myself. I didn't have my father, I was independent. And in the newspaper, there was a big announcement that said, Planned Parenthood urgently seeking a back office nurse. I said, well, I'm not a nurse, but I'm bilingual in both languages, so I'm just gonna call them and see if I can help translate or with paperwork or something. And they were so excited during my interview. The manager said, Patricia, do you have an issue with abortion? I said, no, I'm totally pro-choice. I've actually had 3 abortions myself. That's amazing, and you speak fluent Spanish? Yes. Oh, that's gonna help us so much. You see, we do 50 abortions a week. 90% of our abortion patients are Hispanics that don't speak any English. We need you. We've never had anybody that speaks Spanish here. And that was pretty shocking to me. That was shocking to me that my own people are having it was weird, but I mean, I was totally pro-choice, but now we know that abortion was created to target minorities and to end races that are not white and blue-eyed, and we know that it's basically like a Hitler Nazi type of ordeal. But anyhow, I thought, okay, so yeah, I speak Spanish. Oh, you know, Patricia, well, we know that you're not a nurse and you never went to nursing school and you don't have nursing credentials, but hey, we're gonna hire you as a nurse and we'll train you on the spot. They illegally hired me as a nurse. This is so dangerous because abortion is considered a surgery. So as an illegal nurse that has never even picked up a syringe, I was to assist abortions at Planned Parenthood. I started on a Monday, and it was a counseling day. Basically, it was to prepare these women or young girls for their abortions later that week. The manager takes me into her office and she says, okay, so here you're gonna counsel and you're gonna do everything in your will. So these girls and these women come to their appointment. Now, Patricia, you can never be friendly to a woman that's crying, okay? Because she walks in here and she probably wants another option. You know, she's crying, she wants the nurse, the reception, someone to see her tears and to say, hey, you know what? You don't cry, you don't have to do this. There's other options. No, there's no other options. So you cannot be friends with any patients who ignore tears. Abortion's the only option, do you understand? And it was kind of weird because I was never trained to ignore a patient or not to be compassionate in my other job. Patricia, you will never use the word baby, father, mother, he or she. You can't even use the word fetus. I don't care what you call it. You can even call it an it, a clump of cells, sack of tissue. You just never use any word that gives human dignity. It was very strange that they were training me how to change my vocabulary. And the most important thing, Patricia, is they never see the screen during the ultrasound. Never. If they cry, if they beg, never. Screen faces the abortionist or one of the nurses. Okay, that was kind of weird. But when I was actually counseling young girls during the consultations, I would see a 13-year-old and she's crying and she's scared, and I'd say, you're gonna suffer in this world and you're gonna bring a child into this world and that baby's gonna suffer. This is the way out. I've had 3 abortions, it's not really a baby right now. This is good for you. And I truly thought when I was counseling these young girls that I was doing an act of charity, that I was actually helping them. But then Wednesday was a day that I had to assist abortions, and that's when I saw truth at Planned Parenthood. I want to say something special about the unborn babies that Our Lady gave me during a rosary. This part's not easy to hear. It's very short, I say that. But we have to hear this part because this is what's going on in our nation and our world, especially in California. I feel like so many babies die here. I mean, California is one of the first states where a woman, even in Southern California, there's clinics in San Diego where women have abortions up to 9 months of their pregnancy. California is one of those states where it's a major culture of death. We have to hear this. And you know what's so special about the unborn? I know abortion's ugly and it's hard to hear and it's uncomfortable, but I want to say something beautiful about the unborn that Our Lady gave me during a rosary, because I've had people walk out in this part. But I feel that this part is the most important part because abortion is the biggest wound in Our Lady's heart. This part where what I'm about to say, it's the biggest pain. It's the swords that Mary has today. Those 7 swords that pierce her soul and her heart. It's this. We always hear stories about the saints and we go, wow, amazing saints. You know, we honor their life. We love to hear their stories, especially about the martyrs, because we find it so encouraging, the perseverance that they had, right? We hear about how they were beheaded, decapitated, tortured, and we go, wow. I mean, we don't find it gruesome when we hear the life of the martyrs. But I want to tell you guys that the martyrs of our generation today are the little babies that are aborted in their mother's womb. Because the martyrs of our church history were martyred by their own enemies. The martyrs of our church history were sinners. They had a past. They had sinful intentions and sinful thoughts and maybe sinful words. But God used all that for the glory of the church. But the unborn children were never born to sin. They never had a sinful thought, intention, word. They were never born to be sinful. When you look at the cross and you look at Jesus Christ's martyrdom on the cross, sinless, faultless, without condemnation, in the most purest form that could exist, the creatures that look most like Jesus Christ on the cross, martyred, are those little children that are martyred in their mother's womb. Because they're not martyred by their enemies, they're martyred by their own parents. And that's why in our generation, they are so holy. They're God's little holy ones. And they're the martyrs of the little martyrs. And when we hear about their martyrdom, we honor them. We honor them. This is how they're martyred in our neighborhoods every single day. And those little children, I'm going to say something very powerful. The seed of those abortions, the blood of their martyrdom, is going to end abortion. Just like the saints, the seed of the saints, the blood of the martyrs are great intercessors from heaven. And they sustain us. Those little ones, the blood of the aborted unborn babies, they're the ones that are interceding from heaven. And they're the ones that are going to help us in abortion. And I know that with all my heart. When I go into work on Wednesday, I was put into the manager's office and she said, all right, Patricia, so you're going to be on your feet. And you're going to assist the abortionists and you're going to assist the young girls. Each abortion can only last 5 minutes because time is money. You will never tell a soul what goes on behind these doors. And you will never tell the mothers that after each abortion, we throw their babies away in the garbage. And she used the word mothers. She used human dignity, which was kind of shocking. And you will never tell the fathers in the lobby that after each abortion, we throw their babies away in the garbage. And I didn't understand what she was telling me. I remember putting the first patient into the operation room and she was fainting in my arms. She was 15 years old and she was 3 months pregnant. The abortionist comes in and he says, all right, stand behind me. We're going to start the abortion. And he took out all his instruments and tools. It didn't look safe. I saw the syringes and the blades and the curettes and the sharp scissors, and it just did not look safe. And I stood behind him and he turned on the vacuum machine and he takes out the tip of the vacuum. And the tip of the tip is literally like a spear. It's like a little blade. This is what children experience. It gets speared when abortion happens. And I remember standing behind him and he starts the abortion. And this young girl is kicking, and it looks very violent in the back. And he starts the abortion, and he's looking at his watch, and I think, wait a minute, how does he know he's finished? Well, he doesn't. Because abortion is the only procedure that exists in the world that is a blind man's surgery. That's why legal abortion, make it safe, that's a lie. That does not exist. He can't see what he's doing to that young girl's womb. He can't see if he's perforating the womb, destroying her intestines. He can't see what he's doing. That's why it's so dangerous, and that's why women die. Well, it was my job to see if the abortion was successful, because he couldn't see. And he says, okay, I think I'm done, Patricia. I'm gonna stop the machine. I think I'm done. Can you imagine a surgeon performing heart surgery on a patient and telling his staff, you guys, I don't know if I'm done. I can't see. I'm gonna guess. I think I'm done. Let's just close up the incision. That is not healthcare. That is not healthcare. And I remember I grabbed that bag and they walked me to this back room behind Planned Parenthood. And there was a dish in front of me, and the other fake nurse that was training me, because they hired fake nurses, said, empty that bag out into the dish. And I really believed with my whole heart that I thought I was gonna see a second tissue, because that's what I was told 3 times. And to my shock and my surprise, she holds up to the light with the forceps, a little arm and a hand extended. And she said, this is part number 1. We need 5 parts of the baby to let the abortionist know that the abortion was successful. The first thing I contemplated on that little hand were the fingerprints. And inside of me, I started to scream, the fingerprints. They identify us as irrepeatable, authentic human being. That's what makes me me. There's nobody in the world that has my fingerprint. She puts a little arm down on the table, and she finds part number 2, the other arm, 3, the leg, the second leg. But it was a 5th part that was shattering. It was so heartbreaking. And she holds up to the light a little head. There were little eyes and nose. This baby was formed. And I even remember seeing an eyelash growing. But this baby's mouth was wide open because this baby was screaming, was trying to defend himself. But there was nobody there to hear his voice, and there was nobody there to hear his cries. He was completely voiceless and defenseless. And she puzzled this baby body back together, and said the abortion was successful, and she threw the baby away in the garbage. And I remember it was just a Holocaust in Planned Parenthood all day. And I can tell you, it is one step before going to hell working behind the doors of an abortion clinic. Women fainting, screaming, body parts everywhere in this room. And when I think about these babies in a trash can, why? Why? You know why? Because our world is living a disordered sexual lifestyle, and they don't know what true love is and purity is. And because of that, those who pay the price of their life are those babies that are in trash cans and in abortion clinics every single day. They pay the price of their life because we don't know what true love is. Even adults my age don't know what true love is and have abortions. And it's not fair. Well, I left that place. It was hell on earth. I didn't know who God was. And my refuge was in cocaine. And I was heavily addicted to cocaine, and then I became an addict of methamphetamine. I needed something stronger to numb the pain because the pain was so great. And for the first time in my life, I felt like an assassin. Well, being a drug addict, I turned into a big drug addict. I was addicted all day and just high all day because I was in such misery and pain. I couldn't work. I lost my job. I couldn't go to school. And I basically lived on the streets of California for 3 years as a homeless methamphetamine drug addict. And I was tired of life. I was living on the streets, sleeping in cars. I had no hair. I was very thin. And I really thought I was gonna die on the streets. There's days I didn't eat. There's days I just didn't know if I was gonna live. And I remember seeing myself in the mirror one day. And when I looked into my eyes, I saw no hope. I saw death in my eyes. I was a dead woman walking. And I remember one day I was sitting on a sidewalk curb and I started to weep. And I questioned my life. What will happen with my life? What's gonna happen with me? Am I gonna survive? And as I was weeping like a child on the streets, just far from my family didn't know where I was, no friends, nobody, I felt the presence of God in my heart. And a thought came back to my mind. And it was a thought when I would come out of CCD class, I would run to my patio and I would write God love notes. And I would fold them on a little balloon and I'd send them off to heaven. And I would look up into the heavens and up to the sky and I would talk to God and I loved him and I knew he existed. And I had forgotten all about him. And at that very moment, I knew that the only thing I had left in my life was him, even though I didn't know who he was. And I looked up into the sky and I said, I don't know you, but I know that you exist. I don't have anything. I ruined my life with the choices that I've made, but I want to ask for your forgiveness. I repent from everything that I've done. Not 1 minute passed since I said that prayer. A young woman runs out of a restaurant in her waitress uniform. I saw her name. Her name was Bonnie. And she gave me the biggest and the warmest hug. And she looks into my eyes with so much love and mercy. And she said, Jesus loves you. Jesus loves you. I'm a waitress at that restaurant. And I saw you crying and I prayed for you. And God told me to tell you that even if your father or mother shall abandon you, that he will never abandon nor forsake you, that he will be with you until the end of time. And that young girl said, you are going home today. Eventually, thank God for Bonnie, I ended up back home. And my mother was looking for me. I went back to my father's house. I have very little time, but I'm going to close my talk. But my mother was looking for me, and she said, Patricia, I bought a home in California. I moved back from Mexico. We reconciled, and she said, I'm going to care for you. And my mother, when I arrived at her house, said, I don't believe in the witchcraft. I don't believe in the New Age anymore. I came back home to the Catholic Church. And I've been on my knees for 3 years in front of the Blessed Sacrament, praying for you, offering every rosary, and God gave me this miracle. And you know the love notes that you used to write to God the Father? Well, look, this Bible are love notes that God has written for you and the promises he has for your life. And my mom, with the word of God, started to read everything that I was to God, a princess of the king, a daughter of the Almighty. I was feeling such like trash. I was feeling like hopeless and a loser. But God said something different about me and my life. And thanks be to God for my mother's prayers. I say this, thank God for his mercy. But if it weren't for my mama's prayers, I don't think I'd be here today. So you mamas that are here, never stop praying the rosary for your family members. Never give up hope, because God is faithful to the end. He's faithful to the end. Maybe we won't live to see the conversion of our children, but maybe at the hour of their death, the graces that we pray for them will fall on our children and they will be saved. God is faithful till the end. I believe that. And God is so faithful to a mother's prayers that he wanted to have a mother himself. And he gave the church Mary to be our mother, the mother of the church, as our great intercessor, because the prayers of Mary, our mama in heaven, are so important to God. That's how special they are. My mother encouraged me to go to a Rachel's Vineyard retreat to heal my abortions, a post-abortion healing retreat. And I walked in there Friday afternoon feeling like my children do not exist. I killed them. They ended up in a trash can and a dumpster. I saw it with my own eyes. I touched it with my hands. I know where those unborn babies end up. And I felt like my children no longer existed. I did this. But Saturday in the evening, as I was praying, the Blessed Mother gave me a great grace. As I closed my eyes, I had a vision of my 3 children. I saw my 3 aborted children. A little girl, a little boy, and a little girl. And I was walking up to them and they screamed out to me something I'd never thought I'd hear. Mama, Mother, we are alive. We live in God's glory. And we love you and we're praying for your salvation. And then I heard Jesus' voice in my heart say, do you see the little dresses that your daughters are wearing? The Virgin Mary put those little dresses on them so you can see how beautiful they are. Do you see the clothes your son's wearing? It's to your taste and your liking. The Virgin Mary knows what you like and your taste. She dressed your little son so you could see how precious he is. Do you see the little bows that your daughter's wearing? Well, the Virgin Mary combed their little hair and put those bows in there so you could see how precious your children are. Know this, my daughter, that I was victorious over death on the cross. And I am the King of life, and that your children live in heaven, and they're under the mantle of Our Lady, and one day you will see them for all eternity. All of you here that have lost a child to miscarriage or abortion, I want to say this: nothing is lost, because everything in Christ is restored, and those babies are in heaven under the mantle of Our Lady, and they're praying for you to become a saint. They're praying for your salvation, and that is truth. I didn't know if I'd ever get married. I would meet really good Catholic men. I prayed so many years for my future husband, and I meet all these men interested in taking me out on a date, and they'd say, "What do you do for a living, Patricia?" "Oh, I'm a speaker." "What do you talk about?" "Oh, well, I talk about my 3 abortions, my work at Planned Parenthood, my drug addiction." Shh. And they'd never call me again. And I knew it had to be a man that had the heart of mercy like Jesus, that would be in this battle with me. You know, because I tell this to young girls. We always want the Prince Charming to sweep us off our feet and take our suffering away. We want that man, the good-looking guy that brings us flowers and chocolates and takes us to nice restaurants and to take that sorrow away. The true Prince Charming in the eyes of God is the man that lifts the cross with you and goes into battle with you and helps you become a saint. That is true Prince Charming. That's what God gave me. I never thought I'd have children because I had 3 abortions. You run the risk of not having a child with 1 abortion. I had 3. And I made a promise to Our Lady of Victories. Today's her feast day. I made a promise to Our Lady of Victories. One day I was in France. I said, "Our Lady, if you help me become a mama again, I will name my daughter after you." And 6 years later, I gave birth to my daughter, Maria Victoria, because of Our Lady of the Victories. And 7 months ago, I gave birth to our 2nd daughter. And God gave me a family. And God is faithful. Glory to God. I want to encourage all of you here, we must fight for our state. God wants us to pray and not to be silent and indifferent. But we must do something. We must pray for Newsom's conversion. We have to pray for, we see him as an enemy. We have to pray for him and do acts of reparation for his life. And we must pray for this state, because God can work miracles even in misery, even in a culture of death. God worked miracles in Our Lady of Guadalupe when she appeared in a culture of death where there was human sacrifice. He can do the same for California. So please go out there, defend life, because one day, maybe in heaven, God will say to you, "I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me to drink. I was naked and you clothed me. I was in a womb, danger of being aborted, and you stood up for me and you were my voice." That's who we want to be on our day of judgment. We want to do everything possible that God calls us to do. May the praise and glory always be for Jesus. God bless you, and I ask that you please pray for me, my family. I will pray for you guys, and I will be selling my books over here on the side, and I would love to meet you. But God bless you, and let's do everything we can possible. Pray, do acts of reparation, fast, so California can be that culture of life, that light and hope one day. God bless you.